All right, Moadim L'Simcha, welcome, Erev Tov, to all of you who are on this time zone. And my name is Yoni. I'm speaking to you from a man cave somewhere in Jerusalem, as I understand man cave. I have a photo behind me of our sukkah. That is a we'll just call it a little tabernacle for now because some of you aren't used to these terms. Feast of Tabernacles. So we're in the midst of a really special time here in the country, and I would say an Oktoberfest if I were in the United States, somewhere where close to where Marcia is. The leaves are turning, so a lot of people enjoy the Oktoberfest. Also in the US, Thanksgiving, things like that. Tabernacles is all of it and more. It's sort of a celebration of the end of summer, the final harvest of the year, and then a new year. So everything turns over a new leaf, a new cycle, new growth. So it's a time of Thanksgiving and a time to sort of start over. And next week, if you're part of the Jewish communities, in synagogues all over the world, they'll start with Genesis chapter 1, and they'll do the first, 6 chapters. So I'm not from a Jewish background, and quite a few of us here at Narkis are not. So this is an interesting thing, and I'm going to start out, this is a very unconventional sort of way to begin. I think Gemma will certainly know where I'm going with this. But I want to take us back. This is, again, this is very unconventional for our Bible studies, but I'm going to take us back to the 5th century, late 4th century, and I'm going to read a little bit to you from someone named John Chrysostom. He's an early church father. He had some beautiful sermons and homilies. He was quite a gifted orator. Not such a great writer, but he did speak quite a bit, and most of that was written down. So this is, I assume, from one of his speeches. It's over 70,000 words. It's over 100 pages long. I'm only going to read one snippet. This entire homily is his opinion about the Jewish people and their practices. It's not pleasant. As a matter of fact, it's sort of like pouring kerosene into the sweet wine of fellowship. It's words filled with hate. But I'm going somewhere with this, and I'm going somewhere very positive. So just stay with me. So I'm reading a bit. This is John Chrysostom from his anti-Jewish homily, chapter 1, verse 5. What is this disease? The festivals of the pitiful and miserable Jews are soon to march upon us, one after the other, and in quick succession. The Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Tabernacles, the fasting. There are many in our ranks, Christians, who say they, the Jews, think as we do. Yet some of these are going to watch the festivals, and others will be tempted to join the Jews in keeping their feasts and observing their fasts. But now that the Jewish festivals are close by and at the very door, if I should fail to cure those who are sick with the Judaizing disease, I'm afraid that because of their ill-suited association and deep ignorance, some Christians may partake in the Jews' transgressions. Once they have done so, I fear my homilies on these transgressions will be in vain. For if they hear no word from me today, then they will join the Jews in their fasts. Once they have committed this sin, it will be useless for me to apply the remedy. Well, that's very negative. And it just shocks me that someone of the early Christian formative period would already have such a negative opinion about the Jewish community. And it gets worse. There's people who quote him and others like him, and it snowballs into a very anti-Semitic nightmare. And I think most of you probably know that some of the Nazi quotes they will use him. They will list him amongst their sort of inspirational people, some of their influencers, as the terms are used today. The point of this quote is to demonstrate where we are today. During the past few decades, maybe I should say even the past 150 years, if I lean towards CMJ, for example, Church Mission to the Jews. Back in the 1840s, there was already a vision amongst Christians that God would return to Zion, he would restore the people, he'd bring Jews back from all over, and Christians needed to be there at that moment. So I should say in the last 150 years, there has been a Christian interest in the Jewish people that's been quite positive. So John Chrysostom, he's not quoted by any of these people in the last 150 years. But I just want to bring it up to where we are now. There are many people, I would say quite a few even in our congregation, in Narkis, who have probably built little booths in their backyards or on their balconies. In some ways, I am dedicating this Bible study to my own father. He's 85 years old, actually, on the date that this will be published on Shabbat. He'll turn 85. And, oh, actually, no, it's the 9th of October, which is tomorrow. Never mind. He's still part of this story. He turns 85. He's a Southern Baptist minister, conservative Southern Baptist minister. But back in the 1980s, he built a sukkah in his backyard, according to the biblical understanding. And my goodness, it caused all kinds of interest from the neighbors, and he was able to use it as a great biblical teaching tool. That's more than 30 years ago. That's probably about 85, 86, somewhere in there. And of course, he ended up living here for a number of years. He was part of the Narkis Street's pastoral community. And he, along with my wife's father, actually married us back in 1994. So my father and my wife's father are both sort of the pastoral elders of Narkis. Last week, Gary covered a few aspects about Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. One of his points was that it's a festival about camping. And some of the points that he covered, that people back in biblical times would set up a temporary little booth to be near their crops at harvest. You also want to help protect your crops. You even hire people to come in and live by your crops, watchmen, temporary watchmen. That Gary also talked about people in the Bible who have built these temporary flimsy huts, such as Jonah. He built a very flimsy one. It didn't give him proper shade. The wind blew, and it was catastrophe, really. A sukkah, in some ways, is a little bit like a little tabernacle. Now, I just want to, I know Gary talked about a lot of this, so I'm going to cover some of these points. Repetition is actually quite thorough through Scripture. The Hebrew Bible is all about repetition, so it's no problem for me to repeat some of what Gary said. But the tabernacle, the Mishkan in Hebrew, would have been constructed out of wood. There's debates about what type of wood. Acacia wood is the main one. That would be shittim. And then there would be skins stretched over the wood and curtains of different material, but lots of skin and wood. The skin is probably goat skin. I know there's a lot of debate about that, but just think skin stretched over wood. That's the tabernacle. And what happens is God's presence comes and he dwells in that tabernacle. So he's in the camp. He's sort of like living in a tent, and everyone else is living around him in tents. So tabernacling, we know the concept. Christians use the concept all the time. Tabernacling with the Lord. It's a time of celebration. It's close community and communion. The human body is also skin stretched over bones. It's a little bit like a tabernacle. Now, this is my father's point, so I'm quoting my father, Jim Gerrish, that we're like little tabernacles, and hopefully the Lord comes and lives in us. So just like the big tabernacle with his presence, we're little tabernacles with his presence as well. It's a very beautiful picture. I think the church has had an idea about this. This is really not such news, but it's nice to have this perspective. So here we are at the Feast of Tabernacles, and we're told to go live in these flimsy little huts for 7 days and 7 nights. As a matter of fact, we're supposed to sleep in there, and you feel the weather. Quite often, the cycle of weather here, we often get our very first rain at Sukkot. It didn't rain yet, but we're supposed to think about rain. We even pray for rain at this time. You're going to get wet in a sukkah. There's no serious covering overhead. There's no tiles. There's no, it's very permeable. Palm fronds and leafy elements from trees, and you get wet. The wind blows. You feel it. The sun bears through. You feel that too. You feel very vulnerable, as a matter of fact, for 7 days. Why do we do this? Because we remember what it was like for 40 years in harsh environments. And so this is just a little throwback to that, but at the same time, there's something really sweet and positive about the Feast of Tabernacles. Part of that, we'll come to this in a moment, hanging up fruit, images of fruit on the inside of the sukkah, because really we're thinking about harvest, we're thinking about bearing fruit, being fruitful with our lives. And so there's a lot of perspective here. There's no way I can cover all this in one setting, but I'm going to cover what the subject is this week. It's called Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. So this is the little festival at the very end of the Tabernacles holiday. Shemini Atzeret is the 8th, and then Atzeret is, well, we need a better English word for this, but solemn assembly is how it's rendered in most English Bibles, whether you're reading King James or say RSV, NIV, New American Standard. Quite often it's solemn assembly. I hope we can come up with a better term, because the word solemn to me is not melancholy, but it's not happy. It's dignified, serious, but lacking joy. There's no smile in a solemn assembly. That's my understanding. So I hope we can come up with something a little better, because this holiday is full of joy. So solemn assembly is really, it's not going to apply very well to this title. So Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. Now, if you're Jewish, at the very end of the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days, at the very end, you have this 8th day, and then the day after that is Simchat Torah, the joy of Torah. It's a celebration of receiving Torah from God. Torah in Hebrew is God's teaching. It's everything about him. Most people, Hebrew speakers, don't think law. They think teachings. They think comfort. They think God's word. It's a conduit. The Torah is a conduit between the people and God. All right. So Shemini Atzeret, a solemn assembly, and then Simchat Torah, the joy of Torah. So these two holidays are at the very end of the Feast of Tabernacles, and that's our focus today. If you live in Israel, these two holidays are combined into the same day. And this particular holiday will start tomorrow night as the sun goes down. As we welcome the Sabbath, we're also welcoming Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah, the joy of Torah. All right, so this is probably something that we should do, and it's going to take a bit of extra time, so please be patient, but I think it would be good for us to read the entire text from Scripture that accompanies these 2 days. Shemini Atzeret is Deuteronomy 14:22 through Deuteronomy 16:17. And I think it's probably best for me to just read this, and you'll have to forgive me because the translation I'm using is quite muddled, so I may hesitate here and there. I'm also going to interject certain Hebrew words, a couple of Greek words, how things have been rendered. All right. So I'm going to start, if you've got a Bible, Deuteronomy 14, starting in verse 22, and I will read probably most of this in one go. Deuteronomy 14:22, you shall set aside every year a 10th part of all your yield of your sowing that is brought in from the field. In the presence of the Lord your God, you shall consume the tithes of your new grain and wine and oil and the firstlings of your herds and flocks in the place where he will choose you to establish his name, so that you may learn to revere the Lord your God forever. Should the distance be too great for you, should you be unable to transport them, because the place where the Lord your God has chosen to establish his name is far from you, you may convert all of this into money. Wrap up the money and take it with you to the place the Lord your God has chosen, and spend the money on anything you want: cattle, sheep, wine, even strong drink. Yain ve'ubishchar, so even strong wine or strong drink, anything you may desire, and you shall feast there in the presence of the Lord your God and rejoice with your household. All right, so I'll just pause. This is some of the mindset. This is what people are thinking about. This is what they're reading at this particular holiday at the end of Tabernacles. All right, so you can see it really encompasses all of Tabernacles, all of the harvest, bringing things in, coming to the temple of the Lord, and feasting in God's presence. You get to actually enjoy some of your own labor. This is a rare moment in Scripture. If you've ever, you've probably read through many times, I suppose most of you have, quite often you get the emphasis of, okay, leave the corner of your field, leave 10%, help the Levites, help other people. Very few verses where you also get to enjoy your own labor. Can any of you think of some point, anything in the New Testament as well, where you actually get to enjoy the fruits of your field?
Live it up.
Gary? Hey, Gary. He's not in there. Okay.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
I thought maybe you'd already poured a cup of wine. I wasn't sure. You're allowed to rejoice. You're allowed to feast. You're allowed to drink. And there is a moment in the book of Exodus that comes to mind. Now, some of you might wonder about this, but Moses goes up the mountain. He takes 3 that are close to him, and then he takes another 70. The 70 get to go up a certain distance. They are able to see the presence of God. This is Exodus 24, verses 8, 9, 10, 11, something. They see the pavement of stone, the sapphire, the beautiful presence of God and all the ornate things around him. And what does it say they did? It's very funny to me. It says they looked at all of this, they ate and drank. Well, that's great.
It struck me, Yoni, recently that almost every covenant, every event, every solution, you eat. You eat together. Right. I mean, but what's the New Testament one you're thinking about? Because I was wondering, when he goes up on the Mount of Transfiguration, they don't come down and eat then, do they?
No, I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking there's a moment in the book of Revelation where
all right,
Jesus meets with followers, and they break bread and they eat together. So in the presence of the Lord, at the temple on Mount Sinai, I just thought this is a very nice moment to insert that thought. Okay, I'm going to continue. I'm in verse 27, Deuteronomy 14. But do not neglect the Levite in your community, for he has no heredity portion as you have. Every third year you shall bring out the full tithe of your field of that year, but leave it within your gates. Then the Levite who has no hereditary portion as you have, and the stranger, the fatherless, that is the orphan, and the widow in your gates shall come and eat their fill. So the Lord your God may bless you in all the enterprises you undertake. Chapter 15. Every 7th year you shall practice the remission of debts. In Hebrew, this is Shemitah. It's a release of debts, certain debts, not all debts. But, you know, like the land will have a rest every 7th year. Some people do strip farming, so portions of their land get a rest. This will be the nature of the release. Every creditor shall release the due, the interest, shemitah, that he claims to his neighbor. He shall not exact it on his fellow or kinsman, for the remission or the release proclaimed is of the Lord. You may charge interest on the foreigner, but you must remit whatever is due from your kinsman. In other words, you're allowed to loan with interest to your kinsman, but not during a Shemitah, not with interest. You release that. You can continue other business dealings with non-Jews, that's fine. But with Jews, and we're not talking about business loans, we're not talking about mortgages for a home. Those interests get paid still, but sort of helping someone out. You loaned your neighbor some money so that he could, you know, maybe it was an act of charity. Well, he doesn't owe you interest for that. So that's really kind of the idea that they're focusing on here. I'm also quoting from several rabbis who had quite a bit to say about that. So I'm summarizing and paraphrasing. Verse 4, there shall be no needy among you, since the Lord your God will bless you in the land the Lord your God is giving you as a hereditary portion. If only you heed the Lord your God and take care to keep all his instruction that I enjoin upon you this day. For the Lord your God will bless you as he's promised you. He will extend loans. You will extend loans to many nations, but require none yourself. You will dominate many nations, but they will not dominate you, or in fact, they will not rule over you. And I think this again applies to loans, because you know what happens when you borrow money. You feel dominated. You feel that you're owned by someone else. I've had this feeling quite frequently in my life. Right now, I'm basically almost loan free. You know, during the COVID, some of us have borrowed money. So it's just one of the, it's a survival. It's a fact of life. But we've also been blessed beyond, kind of beyond our wildest imaginations during this time. By the way, I am thankful for the COVID because it's like a sabbatical year for me. And I've been able to read and write and kind of catch up with my thoughts. I've been guiding for 30 years and I really needed to slow down. And so you'll see why I put it in those terms. This is the slowdown holiday, the Shemini Atzeret. All right, I'm in verse 7. If, however, there is a needy person among you, one of your kinsmen, in any of your settlements in the land that the Lord your God is giving you, do not harden your heart and shut your hand against your needy kinsman. Rather, you must open your hand and lend him sufficiently for whatever he needs. Beware lest your neighbor harbor the base thought that the 7th year, the year of remission, is approaching, so that you are mean to your needy kinsman and you give him nothing. Let me just stop there. If one of your neighbors, one of your kinsmen, one of your countrymen, a family member even, a friend, a neighbor, is in need and they approach you and they ask for help, don't be mean. Well, in Hebrew, it's don't have a bad eye. Ve'ra'a eincha. Ein is your eye. Ra'a could be bad or evil. But this expression in Hebrew, like in no other language, this expression also communicates stingy. Don't be stingy. I've just finished a series of books where a gentleman took this expression and he searched all kinds of cultures about bad eye and evil eye. And guess what? He left out the stingy part because he didn't know Hebrew. He didn't know that was a Hebrew expression. And there's 3 out of 4 books that are kind of a waste of time. It's very unfortunate. So don't be stingy when your fellow kinsman asks for help, because he will cry out against you and you will incur a guilt like sin. Give him readily and have no regrets when you do so, for in return, the Lord your God will bless you in all your efforts and your undertakings. I'm going to pause again. And I know that at Narkis we've dealt with this many times. Some of us have written articles on this. But the expression bad eye, ra'ain, shows up in several places. I'm going to give you 1 or 2. Proverbs 23:6. We are told not to eat the bread of a selfish man. Selfish man in Hebrew is bad eye. In the Greek, they translated it, and it's an envious man or a slanderous person. Bad. They didn't get bad with stingy. So it doesn't commute into Greek. It's very interesting. It doesn't commute in English either, in so many other languages. So bad eye, stingy, and some of you probably also know a good eye, tov ein tova, ein yafa, there's several different ways, means generous in Hebrew. So Proverbs 22:9, for example, ein tov, a generous man will himself be blessed, for he shares his bread with the poor. A good eye will himself be blessed, for he gives his bread to the poor. A generous person. So you have that same quote in Matthew 6, where Jesus says, you know how to store up treasures in heaven? Be generous. Use a good eye. If you got a good eye, your whole body will be full of light. If you have a bad eye, you're stingy. Remember, you can't take it with you. It's a good thing. It doesn't commute so well in other languages, but in Hebrew, it's rich. So good eye and bad eye. I just wanted to pause there in Deuteronomy 15 and touch on that. Verse 11. For there will never cease to be needy ones in your land, which is why I command you, open your hand to the poor and your needy kinsmen in your land. If a fellow Hebrew man or woman is sold to you, he shall serve you 6 years, and in the 7th year you shall set him free. And when you set him free, do not let him go empty-handed. Furnish him out of the flock, the threshing floor, and the vat with which the Lord your God has blessed you. Verse 15, bear in mind that you were slaves in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you. Therefore, I enjoin this commandment upon you today. But should the servant say to you, I do not want to leave you, for he loves you and your household, and he is happy with you, you shall take an awl and a hammer and put it through his ear into the door. So you give the guy an ear piercing. It's kind of painful sounding, but that was the system. And then he shall be your slave. And you can do the same with a female slave. Verse 18, when you do set him free, do not feel aggrieved, for in the 6 years he has given you double the service of a hired man. Moreover, the Lord your God will bless you in all that you do. Verse 19, you shall consecrate to the Lord your God all male firstlings that are born in your herd and your flock. You must not work on the firstling ox or shear your firstling sheep, and you and your household shall eat it annually before the Lord your God in the place the Lord your God will choose. But if it has a defect, lameness, or blindness, or any serious defect, you shall not sacrifice it to the Lord your God. Eat it in your settlements, the unclean among you, no less than the clean, just like the gazelle and the deer. Only you must not partake of its blood. You shall pour it out on the ground like water. Chapter 16. Observe the month of Aviv, that is springtime, and offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord your God, because it was in the month of Aviv at night that the Lord your God freed you from Egypt. You shall slaughter the Passover sacrifice for the Lord your God from the flock of your herd, and in the place the Lord your God will choose to establish his name. You shall not eat anything leavened with it. For 7 days thereafter, you shall eat unleavened bread, the bread of distress or affliction, for you departed from the land of Egypt hurriedly, so that you remember the day of the Lord on the day of your departure from the land of Egypt as long as you live. For 7 days, no leavened bread shall be found in you or all your territory, and none of the flesh of what you slaughter on the evening of the first day shall be left until morning. You are not permitted to slaughter the Passover sacrifice in any of the settlements that the Lord your God is giving you, but at the place where the Lord your God will choose to establish his name, there alone you shall slaughter the Passover sacrifice in the evening at sundown, the time of day when you departed from Egypt. You shall cook and eat at the place the Lord your God will choose, and in the morning you may start back on your journey home. After eating unleavened bread for 6 days, you shall hold a solemn gathering for the Lord your God on the seventh day and do no work. Continuing, verse 9, you'll count off 7 weeks. Start to count the 7 weeks when the sickle is first put to the standing grain. Then you shall observe the Feast of Weeks for the Lord your God, offering your free will contribution according to the Lord your God has blessed you. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God with your son and daughter, your male and female slave, the Levite in your communities, the stranger, the fatherless, the widow in your midst, at the place the Lord your God will choose. Bear in mind that you were slaves in Egypt, and take care to obey these laws. All right, just a few more lines from chapter 15, starting verse 13. After the ingathering from the threshing floor and your vat, you shall hold the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days. So here we are. You shall rejoice in your festival with your son and daughter, your male and female slave, the Levite, the stranger. By the way, my surname is Gerrish. Ger is the Hebrew for stranger or foreigner. And sometimes in Hebrew, when I introduce myself to my Hebrew-speaking neighbors, I use the term ger toshav. I am a stranger who resides with you. And for some reason, that communicates the most warm gesture imaginable. And they quickly embrace, if they know the Bible, and most of them do, oh, you're one of us. And they'll totally embrace me, knowing that I'm not Jewish, but I'm a ger toshav. I'm a stranger that lives with you in your land. In other words, it's like what Ruth said, your God is my God, your people are my people. It's a very beautiful way to, sort of engage in conversation. My immediate next door neighbor, this direction, when I did that, I thought the guy was going to cry. He's an observant Jewish person, and when I said that, he just started hugging me. And so ger, stranger, the fatherless and the widow in your communities, you shall hold a festival to the Lord your God 7 days in the place the Lord your God will choose. For the Lord your God will bless all your crops and all your undertakings, and you shall have nothing but joy. 3 times a year, the festival of unleavened bread, the Feast of Weeks, and the Feast of Booths. All your males shall appear before the Lord your God in the place that he will choose. He shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed, but each with his own gift according to the blessing the Lord your God will bestow upon you. The main takeaway from all of that in Deuteronomy 14 through 16 is, from our abundance that God has given to us, we in turn are to bless other people, not to be stingy, even bless strangers, l'chaim, to life. Just bless people. All right, so that is the joy of tabernacling. It's about harvest, it's about sharing, it's about bearing fruit, being charitable. and very neighborly at the same time. Also being vulnerable. I think about this all the time because I'm a guide and I'm out in the environment. This is a harsh place. It's not like the green pastures of England. It's not like the Yorkshire Dales or the Lake District, which is probably my favorite. Just beautiful, luscious green all the time. Here we have cycles of death, really. It goes from green for a few weeks, a little bit of green, to nothing, dry, barren, rather daunting in terms of survival. And why did God pick such a place as the promised land? Why did he pick something that is so hard? It's because we need him for everything. We need him for protection, for rain, for harvest, for planting, for sowing, for reaping. It completely makes sense. Tabernacles make sense that we are expressing our thanks to God that he helped us through another year, because this is not an easy place to live. No matter if you're a resident, alien, or if you're a citizen, it's a difficult place. Ask anybody who's lived here for a long time, and they'll tell you the same story. Now, I'm shifting gears. I don't know how much time I have left. I'm going to try to hurry. Numbers 29, starting in verse 35, and this portion is short, but I'm going to read it as well. Numbers 29, starting in verse 35 to the first verse of chapter 30. This is what's read, again, during Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. The happiness, the celebration of God's teaching, and the eighth day, which in English is solemn assembly, but we're going to change that shortly. All right, I'm starting verse 35. On the eighth day, you shall hold a solemn assembly. Shemini Atzeret, so atzar in Hebrew is to slow down. Atzor could be stop, slow it down. I wish we could just call this the big slowdown. Take it easy. Wait, just lean back and enjoy this moment. This is not a somber time. This is not a melancholy moment. This is a happy thing that you can enjoy, and just take it easy. Just really enjoy this part, all right? Shemini Atzeret is something you're supposed to slow down and enjoy. Now, at Narkis, we have probably quoted Rabbi Andrew Sachs, Jonathan Sachs. See, I know an Andrew Sachs and a Jonathan Sachs. So it's Jonathan Sachs that we quote quite frequently. And he explained it like other rabbis have explained it. If you've been to a party, you've been to a big engagement, and the owner or the master of the house comes to you in private and says, hey, stick around after the party. We're going to bring out the good stuff. That's Shemini Atzeret. That's an invitation to come a little deeper in, have some quiet time and fellowship, and enjoy the presence of God. And so here's the texts. Numbers 29, starting in verse 35. On the 8th day, B'yom Hashmini, on the 8th day you shall hold a big slowdown. Atzeret. You shall not work on your occupations. You shall present a burnt offering, an offering by fire of pleasing odor to the Lord. Barbecues always smell really good, by the way. 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 yearling lambs without blemish, the meal offerings and libations for the bull, the ram, and the lambs in the quantities prescribed, and 1 goat for a sin offering. In addition to the regular burnt offerings, it is the meal offering and libation. All of these things you shall offer to the Lord at the stated times, in addition to your vows and free will offerings, be they burnt offerings, meal offerings, or libations, or offerings of well-being. So Moses spoke to Israelites just as the Lord commanded Moses. Now, what was all that about? I'm going to turn to things I found online, articles I found. Quite a bit of it was new to me. I hadn't seen this before, but I quite liked it. This is Nachmanides, Rabbi Nachman. He's from the 12th century, Spanish teacher, rabbi, Bible scholar, Jewish. He explains it like this. 7 is the number of the natural world. There are 7 days in a week, 7 notes on the musical scale, and 7 directions: left, right, up, down, forward, back, and center. All right, this is medieval thought, okay? This is 2D, this is not 3D yet, all right? 7, represented by the 7 days of Sukkot, which is tabernacles. It's the world of nature. But 8, the 8th day, Shemini Atzeret, that goes beyond the natural. That goes beyond nature. This is a special little party that you get to be a part of at the end of Tabernacles. You've had a nice time all week long in your sukkah, feasting and sharing food and stories. Your kids sleep in the sukkah. My kids have been sleeping out in the sukkah. But at the end of that, oh, there's a special little thing which is beyond. It's beyond front, left, right, center, up, and down, okay? This is a special moment of communion with God. And we began with a very hateful homily. Okay, hominy is a type of food in some parts of the US. Homily, this was a set of oral presentations by a very anti-Semitic early church father, unfortunately, John Chrysostom. We started out with a very negative thing. And so now we consider more of the modern Christian opinion. And I'm going to read a little bit. This is from Samuel Clemens, otherwise known as Mark Twain, well-known American author. He wrote extensively about this country, came to the Holy Land. He wrote about his adventures. He wrote some very humorous things. He wrote some very powerful, deeply, almost moving things. And he wrote this a few years later. The Jewish people have survived every imaginable persecution, just like John Chrysostom's words. They've experienced exile, hardship, and expulsion, and still they have achieved and thrived. All things remain mortal, but the Jew. All other forces pass, but he remains. What is the secret of his immortality? And that's from 1898, a little tractate that Mark Twain wrote. He was actually writing to people in Europe, Germany. He was addressing growing anti-Semitism in Europe at the time. And he's trying to figure out, why are you doing this why are you feeling this way to the Jewish people? They haven't done anything except probably good. Why would you be singling them out for such hatred? Rabbi Emanuel Feldman, he's somebody I found online. He addressed this question from Mark Twain. He said, the secret is the special gift that God gave to his people. It's called the Torah. And it's all of his teachings. It's all of his care and concern. It's all of his love. And this conduit of Torah between God and his people is the way they communicate. It's the means by which God fulfills his covenant with his people, how he sustains and protects his people. Everything is about the word. God's word sustains his people. So therefore, it is no coincidence that on Shemini Atzeret, the Jewish people celebrate the completion of the yearly cycle of Torah readings and the beginning of a new cycle. This event is lovingly referred to as Simchat Torah, literally rejoicing of the Torah. And the Jewish people are accustomed to finishing and restarting the reading, so that we finish the cycle of the reading of Torah and we start again anew. And some of the Jewish sages, a couple thousand years ago, would say things like, it's to show that the Torah is beloved to us like a new object and not like an old command, which a person no longer treasures. Since it is brand new to us, we all run and greet it and embrace it. We sing and dance for hours, and we carry the Torah scroll and express our joy at having the opportunity to come so close to God. On Shemini Atzeret, we complete this holiday season and we offer thanks and a special prayer to God for rain. I just think that's very, very interesting that we end the whole thing with a prayer for rain. Now, those of you who know Hebrew, you know that the root of Torah, yara, has to do with taking aim, like with an arrow, or teaching. And it's also the root for the word rain, yore, more. You've heard expressions like early rains, latter rains. So the word Torah is also connected to the word rain. So to me, it's really interesting that we would end with a prayer for rain. We would end for...
Which word, Yoni?
Yeah.
Which word would be the connecting word?
Yara.
Oh, yara.
Yara is the root of Torah. It's the root of... You can speak about rain in other ways. You can say geshem. This is one of the biblical words for rain.
Yore.
Yore geshamim. Sometimes it'll use like a doublet.
Could I say something about something you said a few minutes ago?
Sure.
Which is the whole thing about the eighth day, which I didn't really realize. It's to do with, it's like staying on for the party that you talk about, because it's all to do with remaining, remain in the joy, remain in the rejoicing.
Right.
And I link that with something, I think it's in the end of 2 John, which is remain. In English, it's down as abide, but it's actually remain in me until I come. And that's the same idea, that if you remain in the joy, you're remaining with the Lord, you're remaining in the same. It's just amazing, and I got excited.
That's really good. I want to point out that during the Feast of Tabernacles, and actually, Gary, I don't know if you said this or not, it's in the order of about 70 bulls are sacrificed over the course of 7 days.
It's amazing.
During the Feast of Tabernacles. And on the 8th day, Shemini Atzeret, they sacrifice 1 bull. And I didn't read any profound rabbinic statement about this. I just thought about it. It's just part of the big slow it down. Let's just take it easy. Let's just slow it down. Let's just do 1 bull today. We won't do 10 or 11 or 12. We'll just do 1 today. If any of you have a better take on that, I'd be thrilled. But to me, it was sort of like, yeah, let's slow it down, take it easy. I have a lot of other things that I would like to read. I think I'll be careful here and just give you 1 or 2. This is from the Mishnah. The Mishnah is a section of rabbinic teachings in Hebrew, and later the Babylonian, Jerusalem Babylonian Talmud will be discussions in Aramaic about the Mishnah, which is Hebrew, which is about the Bible. So the Mishnah is sort of like commentary on the Bible, and the Talmud is kind of like commentary on the Mishnah. So this is a Mishnah quote from a book called Sukkot, Tabernacles. And I just thought this was humorous. So some of you know it's got to have survival is how, we survive on humor here. I think that came out right. This is a quote from Sukkot, chapter 2, verse 9. Throughout the 7 days of the feast, a man must make his sukkah in a regular abode with his house in a chance abode. In other words, you make your sukkah flimsy, but it becomes your house. And then your house becomes your chance abode. It's kind of a funny way to put it. If rain fell, well, you'll get wet if you're in the sukkah, of course. And the porridge could spoil. And they created a parable. To what can it be compared? To a slave who came in to fill the cup for his master, and he poured the pitcher all over his face. It's just a little bit backwards, it's a little bit strange, it's a little bit humorous, but Sukkot is reverse of logic. That we would move out of our nice, comfortable homes and move into a temporary, flimsy dwelling for 7 days doesn't make any sense at all. So I thought that quote was quite nice. You expect a cup, the whole pitcher ends up in your face. Is everyone okay so far? All right, so I thought I would invite you to a little afterglow party. All right, Shemini Atzeret is this afterglow. Hang around. Let's spend some more time together, and then we bring out the good stuff. So this has never happened on a Narkis Street Bible study before. And you can't see it because it's an optical illusion. This is wine, and I thought I would.
You didn't give us time to go and get our own to join you.
You're more than welcome to get your own and come join me. But I would like to come back to one of the first things I said. I'm sort of dedicating this whole time to my father, Jim Gerrish. Today, or this weekend, is his 85th birthday. And I thought, well, that's interesting. 85. Well, there's an 8 and there's a 5. We're celebrating this 8th day, and there's 5 books of Torah, right? Okay. Well, if we're playing this thing in English, the word party has 5 letters. The word Torah has 5 letters in English. The banjo has 5 strings. And I have picks, and I play with 3 fingers. 5 and 3 is 8. That didn't work, but I thought I'd give a couple of songs.
Those of us who know you, it just about worked.
Pick it, Yoni. Pick it.
What's that?
Pick it.
You know, David, I'm sorry you're not here to join me, because that would be a lot of help. Because what I'm about to do is virtually impossible, because the banjo is it's a complicated instrument for certain types of music. So this style of music doesn't work on the banjo. I'm going to do it anyway because that's the kind of person that I am.
My fingers on my hand only use 3 on the trumpet valves. There's your 8.
All right, this is going to be a one-way street. So don't try to sing along, because then it'll break up the audio. Unless you want to break up the audio. If it's really poorly executed, maybe it's good that you would break up the audio with clapping or singing or something. So I'm going to try to do this. This is a song from Shemini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. You'll hear the Simchat Torah in this song. And by the way, it is found in Psalm 40, verse 17. These 2 words. Sisu ve'simchu besimchat Torah u'kavod la'Torah. Sisu ve'simchu besimchat Torah u'kavod la'Torah. Sisu ve'simchu ושמחו בשמחת תורה, ותנו כבוד לתורה. All right, that didn't work, but it was close. So I thought, I'll go for broke. And again, we're breaking with standard Narkis traditions.
Pick it and blow it, Yoni. Pick it and blow it.
Yeah, this I might actually blow it. This is another song for Simchat Torah, and it's a traditional tune. David Melech Israel Chai Vekayam.
Can you just give us, you had a text for the first song, for the first words.
Ah, right. The text for Sisu Vesimchu.
Yeah, no, not the words, just the text if it's there.
Ah, just for the two words, Psalm
Yeah.
40, verse 17.
I couldn't hear it. It's still 8:17.
Psalm 40, 40, 17. Psalm 40, 17.
Sorry, it's just that it's the sound that doesn't work.
Did you get it?
Yeah. And I got the wine too.
And you can still understand, Gemma?
What?
You can still understand? Okay, go ahead.
I've only just started, David, don't worry.
This won't work so well either on the banjo, but I'm going to do my best. So I'll sing it a little bit and then I'll play the harmonica. It's David Melech Israel, David, King of Israel, lives and exists or lives forever. So David, King of Israel, lives forever. That's the words to the song that they sing during Simchat Torah.
Are we allowed to sing with you? Does it not work?
If you sing with me, then it'll cut the audio.
Okay.
So I'll tell you what, I'll
It
sing
might be delayed too.
I'll sing it through, I'll play it on the harmonica, and then I'll just fiddle a bit. I'll do twiddly bits on the banjo, and you can sing along, and Gary will just fade us out at that point, and it'll be over. All right? And this is kind of high because, well, it's the harmonica. David, Melech Israel, Chai, Chai, Vekayam. David, Melech Israel, Chai, Chai, Vekayam. David, Melech Israel, Chai, Chai, Vekayam. David, Melech Israel, Chai, Chai, Vekayam.
Sing happy birthday to your dad. Yoni, can we sing happy birthday to your dad to end?
Oh, that would be perfect.
Yom
That
Yom
would-
Uledet. Whatever. You do it. You lead.
Ayom, yom, ayom, yom,
Yom Yom Uledet. Yom Yom Uledet. Yom Yom Uledet.
Great.
Right.